Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I don't think this mic is working or not, but I'm loud enough, so that's good. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I know that, like Mary said, the weather was not cooperative all that much, and I think we got the space shuttle going here, so this will be good. But yes, I do work for a locally based, Dunwoody-based home care company serving all of Metro Atlanta for about 40 years. So this is a big stretch for me to talk about home care, but I will tell you that I apologize in advance because I will eventually say we a lot during these, because this is about home care. So I always will say we or something, and there'll be a few slides that will be a little busy. So I apologize in advance. But very quickly, the term home care, having been in healthcare, there's home health, home care, personal care. They do get thrown around a lot. So what we're going to do is the who, what, when, where, why about home care, and some other terms that are, so it makes it so you understand exactly what those terms are, and because they do get, I think, thrown around quite a bit. So what is home care? Well, I know the definitions can vary somewhat, but it is one-on-one care. It's usually provided in a private home. I always say wherever home may be. And Natasha, I don't want to steal Natasha's thunder, but she will be discussing other senior living environments where people live. And we, in home care, I always said we right out of the first gate. We do, but mainly home care is provided in the home, and it's by a CNA, a certified nursing assistant, or a caregiver. And now we'll discuss that in a minute, but that caregiver can be a family member, aunt, uncle, neighbor. Caregiving is being provided by many, many people all over this country, not just by a private duty agency or CNAs. Now, what they do is they assist individuals who are unable to fully care for themselves due to advanced age, illness, disability, or injury. For instance, there could be mental or physical declines. And we support, that includes assistance with what are called activities of daily living and other homemaking tasks so they can maintain their independence. That's the whole point of home care. So you can live your life and thrive as long as possible in your home. And like I said, it can be, I call it wherever home may be. It could be an assisted living, independent living, memory care type arrangements. And the care can be a few hours. We can have 1 hour all the way up to just even 24/7 care. And we'll talk about that depending upon the needs. Now, when we talk about assistance with ADLs, those are all the tasks that we take for granted, but become much more difficult to accomplish as we get older, but especially even after, let's say, a procedure or illness coming out of the hospital. And these are the things that we help with: bathing, dressing, personal hygiene, toileting, incontinence, even companionship. As folks do get older, their circle of friends, their social circles get a little smaller. Spouses pass away, they are alone for great deals of time, and so companionship is an issue. So we encourage physical therapy and socialization. Mobility is a huge area of concern and need, where people need assistance getting out of a chair, out of bed, getting back into bed. That we call that transferring, moving from room to room, helping get you into the bathroom. Those are things we all take for granted, but I can have a procedure and a hip replacement or a knee replacement, and I'm going to say, hey, where are you going? How can I need assistance here. So that's where we come into play. Medication reminders that usually are set up by a nurse or a family member with the medication pill boxes. We do medication reminders. We'll talk about in a different slide about but that line in the sand between what is home health and, let's say, home care. Transportation can be provided to, for instance, to get to errands, grocery shopping, doctor appointments, support outside activities, light housekeeping, laundry, meal preparation, and feeding. And again, the duration can be a few hours or up to 24/7 care for such tasks. What is not home care? I mean, home care is non-medical support. It does not include those clinical services usually provided in a hospital setting, surgeries or medical treatments, or what's called a skilled nursing facility, which is a term for nursing home. Home health is that visiting nurse, as everyone knows about, as my mom would say, a visiting nurse is coming after she got released from the hospital. And that is medical or nursing care that's provided in a patient's home usually. It's by a licensed healthcare professional, nurses, OT, PT, physical therapists, occupational therapists. They usually manage those chronic conditions after an injury or illness. And these are the tasks that would be considered home health. And the reason I go through this just very quickly is because we do get a lot of calls, as well as a home health provider. If you've heard of a Medisys, or I still call them Gentiva, they've been called different names now, Centerwell. These home health providers do get calls, and they realize when they're vetting the calls that really they need home care. So we do work with them, and so they'll refer to us. And of course, when we get calls and they really do need that clinical assistance, which is out of our control, we don't do that. We would relay those calls to those home health providers. But these are the types of tasks that they perform, which are medication administration, including injections. Remember, I said that we do medication reminders, but we don't handle medication or dispense. There's a big difference. And these are good rules, by the way. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, infusion therapy, IV, I should say, intravenous therapy, first aid, or even wound care, any kind of blood withdrawals or respiratory therapy, catheter work. Usually when you're coming out of the hospital, there's some catheters that are in place. We get calls all the time. Do you do catheter work? And we really can't do that. A lot of that has to do with infection. And most of these situations, you need a clinician for that, just in case there would be infection. And of course, maintenance of feeding tubes, colostomy bags, and oxygen tanks and tubing. When is home care beneficial? Of course, we did discuss a little bit before, but aging in place, we support older adults who want to maintain their independence, live right where they want to be for as long as they can when they age in their home. Disability support, we provide, again, those assistance with activities of daily living for those with physical or cognitive disabilities, mental declines. Companionship, again, provide and strengthen social connections due to some isolation. Coming out of the hospital, we support folks with recovery and recuperation. Even respite care, really, which is providing relief for families and other caregivers. For those who are taking care of folks with Alzheimer's or dementia, it's 24/7, and they need a little bit of a break. Sometimes with some cancer oncology patients, that's also very, it's tough for everyone, including, of course, the patient, but the families, and they need a little bit of a break. So we consider companion care for just that, to just sub in for families, just for a little while. And of course, we also help with some specialized medical conditions, such as diabetes, COPD, heart disease, and respiratory illnesses. Let's talk just a little bit about the different levels of care. I did mention that before. Companion care, again, it's to provide emotional and socialization support to help people stay connected. We can help with whatever kind of hobbies they have, socialization, we engage with their social activities and hobbies. Again, companion care would be anything that would be non-hands-on. That would be considered personal care, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the companion care is accompanying them to, let's say, appointments, errands, activities, social events and venues, grocery shopping, and even meal preparation is considered companion care. Medication reminders, light housekeeping, laundry, pet care, and even organization of mail and bills. Okay, there we go. Now, again, with personal care, though, that's when you do assist, hands-on assist with individuals with ADLs, and it's obviously much more personal in nature, to maintain their independence and dignity while ensuring their safety and well-being. Meal preparation, but actually feeding, would be personal care. Bathing and hygiene, obviously very personal. Grooming and dressing, bathroom assistance and incontinence, where you're encouraging physical therapy. Usually you're coming in after the home health aide has been there, or when they're doing physical therapy. We encourage that, maintain their care plans. That's where we work together. As well as mobility and ambulation and transferring. That is all what's considered personal care. Now, when we talk about memory care, when we talk about mild cognitive impairment to more advanced Alzheimer's and dementia, the caregivers can offer consistent, stable support addressing ADLs, encourage social engagement, and provide that safe, secure environment. The symptoms are obviously having to do with planning, money, managing finances, disorientation. They have some confusion. There's difficulty with speech, judgment, and walking and swallowing, as well as of course, mood and behavioral changes. Oops, I'm sorry about that. When we talk about the dementia and Alzheimer's, again, those terms are kind of interchangeable and they're actually distinct. It's the general condition associated with decline in brain function, including memory loss, difficulties with speech and language, problem solving, and social abilities. And it's severe enough to interfere with everyday tasks and impact the quality of life. Sorry for the busy slide, but I thought that I'd try to take it from 26,000 feet because dementia is the umbrella term, but Alzheimer's is the most prevalent of all dementia conditions. And it's the largest, about 70% or so of all dementia type cases. And that affects memory, thinking, behavior, causes confusion and progresses over time, and affects everyday activities, communication and decision-making. It was just actually in the news just recently. I always thought Ted Turner had Alzheimer's. Everybody knows that he's been out of the spotlight for a while, but it was known that he actually has Lewy body dementia. And those are just small protein deposits that are in the brain, and they have some different symptoms where they can figure out if it's Lewy body with hallucinations and difficulty with balance and walking. Vascular is stroke related, causes paralysis and affects speech and difficulty with mobility and problem solving. Bruce Willis was in the news with his recent condition disclosed with frontotemporal dementia, nerve damage to neurons in the front temporal lobes of the brain, and difficulty with language and walking and emotional issues. Now, I wanted to talk about this just briefly. The mild cognitive impairment is a level of cognitive decline that is greater than what is normally seen with other people their age, but not severe enough to be considered dementia. You may be experiencing trouble with memory or language. So losing your keys is not memory loss, obviously.
Bixby voice privacy contents have been updated.
I agree. Okay. Jesus. I hate Bixby. Anyways, but if you do happen to, like my aunt who couldn't find our house at Thanksgiving, and we have a knock on the door from a police officer that she walked right in and couldn't find the right. Well, that's a problem. She couldn't find our house, which she'd been to a million times. That would be cause for concern just to get perhaps seen by a physician. Again, just moving on with different levels of care that what we do, post-hospitalization, we in home care, post-hospitalization and rehab, after folks get discharged from hospitals at almost any age, or rehab center after a surgery illness, we support them with their recovery and recuperation. That could just be a few days, it could be a few weeks. Some folks, it might take a few months. And the biggest activities of daily living that we really focus on, especially with some older patients or clients, would be nutrition and hydration, keeping them, after a procedure, you want the best result possible. So we try to make sure that they're hydrated and get good nutrition post-procedure. Mobility is a huge need, like I mentioned, with ambulation, getting them in and out of bed. There's time for healing, but there's actually a time, especially now with the way they do things with hips and knees, knee replacements, is they want you up and moving and encouraging that quickly. So we definitely want to encourage that. Medication reminders, again, a lot of folks just don't take their medications. They can be non-compliant. What could go wrong? Lots of things. Or they don't go to their doctor's appointments or physical therapy post-procedure. We try to do that to get the best result. We also see some specialized medical conditions that are fairly complicated. Folks who have stroke, heart related issues, Parkinson's. Of course, we do help out with people who do have cancer or oncology situations, and we end of life with hospice. We work with hospice companies, again, with we're really there for respite care and companion care when we work with hospice companies as well. This is just something that I wanted to explain too, that a lot of folks, when you go with a home care agency, this is what you should be getting, and that is a national background check of the caregivers that are going to be entering the home. Doing driving checks, background checks, in-person interviews should be done, checking references, obviously with insurance being bonded and insured. They're usually employed. They're not 1099 employees. They're employees that are employed by the home care agency. They do TB screening, tuberculosis screening, as well as COVID nowadays, of course. And there's also nurse assessments and reassessments. The nurses will go out to do a free assessment, as well as a home safety inspection of the home, so that way we will have an idea, or the caregivers will have an idea of what they're walking into, what type of home environment. And the reassessments are done usually every 60 to 90 days, or any kind of change of condition. If a client goes back into the hospital, that will trigger a reassessment, because once they come out, they're going to have some different needs and different medical conditions. Now, a lot of folks do use private caregivers. They're usually less costly. The recipient it's a little bit of buyer beware, because you have to take into consideration paying taxes on that, who you're paying, perhaps liability and workers' comp, insurance, payroll, like I said, payroll and taxes, as well as background checks. And perhaps you would have to do your own TB and other types of screening, which could add to the cost, but they would be technically less costly. And I haven't got into our prices. When I say our prices, the Atlanta prices could be anywhere from $25 to $35 an hour. And deposits, like I mentioned, are not always required. And so how the process works with home care is that there usually is that first phone consultation, where it could be with the client, prospective candidate, or a family member, a son or daughter, that calls, and we'll talk about all of the care concerns, the current problems that they're going on, history, support needs that they may think of, and then we'll try to schedule the nurse assessment as well. And when that is done, like I said, in the home, where we meet the client and the families, usually customized care plans are developed that address the specific needs and concerns, and of course, whatever the nurse recommendations that may they find. And then they have also, they'll determine a schedule that meets their budget. And I never want to overlook the caregiver match, because that will solve most of any kind of potential problems. Is that it's an art and a science, trying to get the best type of person for mom or dad or your loved one. Because once it really happens, it's magic. It may be resistant to home care initially, but then, boy, they like Susie. They want Susie. When is Susie coming? And it's great. It's really a good thing. And if we don't get it right, we'll just try to get another match, because you never know, that can happen. And usually there are dedicated case managers assigned as the main point of contact with your client to manage the care coordination, communication, any kind of service-related issues. It's always good to have that. So let's talk about costs. The rates in Atlanta for private duty home care is around $25 to $35 an hour. That's where we are in a post-COVID world. It was probably 22 or so pre-COVID, but things have gone up quite a bit. So I just kind of gave an example of what this would be if there was a lot of folks have a minimum, we call it a minimum amount of time for a shift. If they come into your home, how long would they stay? It could be an hour or 2 hours. It could be up to about 4 or 6 hours. So just as an example, this would be at $25 an hour, and you wanted one person to come in once a week for 8 hours, an 8-hour shift, that would be $200. A couple of days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, that would be $400. And if it would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, it would be about $600 a week. Now, we do have what are called live-ins. There's some rules involved with that in order to have that happen, but that's where the caregiver does live in the home. Again, some state and fed rules require that they have to have 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. They have to have a bedroom with a door, that sort of thing. They have to have that. And that's about $400 a day. It's not cheap. And if you didn't have that, but you required 24/7 care, you could break that up however you'd like, 12-hour shifts, 2 12-hour shifts, or 3 8-hour shifts. That would be about $600 a day. So it gets to be cost prohibitive at some point. And that's kind of where Natasha will talk about, where I always say we're that first phase, but then eventually you'll have to consider perhaps other places to live in independent living or assisted living, that sort of thing. Or with the kids, you never know. Now, how to pay for home care. I would say very quickly that most of home care is out of pocket. However, there are, with traditional Medicare Part A and B, it does not cover non-skilled home care, long-term care, 24/7, 24-hour care in the home. They even mention supporting activities of daily living if you don't have any other medical requirements or needs. So if you're not seeing a physician and you say, well, I'd like to have someone take me to the grocery store and make my meals, that's not covered by Medicare. They will not deem that reimbursable. But the Medicare Advantage plans, Part C, I'm going to get real political. I sound like a politician, may provide coverage for home care services. However, the benefits, there's some specific coverage, there's out-of-pocket costs that may vary on your particular plan. We get calls. It's a particular, the Medicare Advantage plans, it's a little hard to figure that out. I don't mean to punt the ball, but what we try to do is have them go to their Medicare Advantage plan administrator to figure that out, because we can't figure it out. It's hard, but I would recommend that. But you do have to have medical conditions and be receiving physical therapy, occupational therapy. You must be considered homebound, unable to leave the home, under active and ongoing physician care. So those are just some of the requirements that I would suggest talking to your plan administrator for that. Again, apologize for the busy slide, but you can get this paid for by the VA. I'm a veteran and they've revamped the system. We're in Region 5 in the country, but you have to be enrolled. Again, very similar rules, ironically enough, with the government, but you have to be enrolled with the VA healthcare benefits. You have to qualify and meet requirements with their CCN network, Community Care Network, which is relatively new. You have to be under a VA order, physician order, to receive home care services. And I just had these links because they are really good links to find out if you would like that, because it is based upon disability rating, your income level, your military service record, and assigned priority group. You get kind of a number of priority. There's also a homemaker and home health aid program as well. So these are just good links if you wanted to look into it more if you were a veteran. And then long-term care insurance. Most long-term care policies do cover home care. There's some deductibles and some requirements that, prior to payment, but in my experience, we call it the old Cadillac plans. The new ones are really just a bucket of money with a deductible. And it's a finite amount of money. Maybe I'm biased, but I would use it for home care. Why? Because you can use it for assisted living, you can use it for a skilled nursing facility, but you're going to go through that bucket pretty fast, or faster, let's put it that way. I would try to use it where it could, in the home. Why not? And most home care companies honor the long-term care. They'll even do the billing, which is a lot easier for everybody. So there's no interruption of service. And I'm sorry, again, last busy slide. But the Georgia waiver program, if you qualify for Medicaid, there's a number of waiver programs that are really great. And they do have home care components in there that we can help with. The Elderly and Disabled Waiver Program, that's a CCSP, which is the Community Care Services Program, operates under this waiver. And again, it just assists with those ADLs and assists individuals who are older or have disabilities to achieve safe, self-reliant home lives at home, rather than being in a nursing home or skilled nursing facility. And it's based on levels of impairment and unmet needs. And of course, the participants must meet medical, functional, and financial eligibility criteria for placement in a nursing facility, and be under a physician as well. Now, they also have what's called source service options using resources in a community. That serves older adults and disabled over 65 with chronic conditions, such as rheumatoid arthritis, stroke, diabetes, COPD with asthma, spinal cord injuries or amputations, or under 65 and disabled who meet that nursing home requirement. Why are they doing all this on a national level? Is because there's just not enough capacity to treat folks in nursing homes. There's just not enough. So we want to push more care into the home. You see that's just the right, people want the care in the home, and that's what everybody is driving towards. Structured family caregiving, family caregivers actually do get paid for their care. The requirements are that they live with the person as a primary caregiver. They're related obviously as a daughter or grandson, or maybe even a daughter-in-law or sister-in-law. And it's under the CCSP source waiver. There's also an independent care waiver program, which helps severe physical disabilities get home care at home. It's adults only. That would be, for instance, a traumatic brain injury. And of course, there's one for kids, PEDS, the GAP program, Georgia Pediatric Program for Children, that helps children under 21 with both home care and home health support. And lastly, how to pay for home care would be reverse mortgages. They've been a lot more transparent and I would say legitimate. I think initially people were very suspect of these. However, a lot of people have been using these, and they're great because but just to let you know, this is what entails. It's a loan that seniors can take. It borrows against the home's equity. It's not paid back until the borrower passes away or moves from the home for about 1 year. It's only paid back when the home is sold. It has to be paid back, whatever you're borrowing, with interest, rather than in installments. There's some equity rules. You can't owe more than the home's value. And there's some other eligibility and some other requirements, but I would advise to just locate an FHA approved reverse mortgage lender, and they can help you with those needs. So, and does anyone have any questions at all about home care and how you can benefit it? Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And oh no, I don't know where.
How do I go?
I'm gonna end
Just click right
slideshow.
there?
Oh yeah, cool. Oh, there we go.
So how did you go to the next
Oh,
slide?
and then you just go right there.
Oh,
See,
cool.
there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see your mic. I didn't see that.
Oh,
Let's see
yeah,
if
that's
that
right.
got turned off somehow.
Was I loud enough?
You have to close the door.
So, there you go. I think it wasn't. There was not blue before. I went off. It was blue before. Far away. That might be.
I'll
Because
just
you
talk
gave
loud.
it to me when it blinked.
It was blinking when I gave it to you.
Yeah.
Hello? 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 I'll just talk loud. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll just scream. Project. All right. Hi, my name is Natasha Berk. I'm one of the co-founders of Atlanta Senior Advocates. My other half cannot be here today, so it is just me, and I'm going to thank her for that one. All right, so home sweet home, residential options as we age. So a lot of what I have on the slides, it's going to be a little redundant, but I actually appreciate Greg for defining a lot of the terms, so I actually don't probably have to go over them again. So I thought this was cute because I'll just read it. My body is older now and not as good as it used to be, but my spirit is young and free. Age is nothing but a number as long as I never let go of the child inside of me. Age, so this rings very, very true today. I started in this industry about 13 years ago. And I worked in a community, and the people that I was moving into memory care at that time, they were probably in their late 80s, early 90s. Today, and what I do today, a lot of the folks that we are now moving into memory care are in their 70s. It really has shifted. So when I do say age is just a number, this video is probably not going to work, but you can get the gist. This was actually a client of Lynn's. She moved into Hardest of Buckhead, which is on the leadership team for ACAP. And when she moved in, after she did so, she decided to jump out of the plane, not because she was having a bad experience, but she just had, it was like kind of like a new, lease on life, a change, whatever, the next chapter. And then afterwards, she had a good old fashioned cold beer. Good for her. So I'm good today, my discussion. I'm going to talk about discovery. That really is more about what I do and what, if you call a referral agency, I would recommend doing so. If you're looking for placement, even if it's not my company, call a company because, and especially a local one, we're very well versed in all the communities on an intimate level. When you do call, we're going to do a discovery, much like home care does. We're going to drill down on the care needs of the person you're looking for, location and budget. And then there's like a whole slew of other things I'm not going to get into, but that's generally what we're going to start looking at. And then we work on the options for you. I'm going to talk about all the senior living options. So 55 plus senior apartments, independent living, which also you can call a retirement community, assisted living, personal care homes, memory care, and I'm going to briefly go over skilled nursing and CCRCs. So 55 plus senior living apartments. So these, I'm going to use my mom as an example. I want her to move here and she's in Orlando and my sister has had her long enough. So I think she needs to move here. We would be looking at this segment. She's about 72 years old. She still works full time. She actually works for a home care company and she does not want to be in a community that has a continuum of care. She just wants an apartment, but she doesn't want to be with people that are, like 25, 35 years old and just trying to figure out their life. So she's trying to figure out hers too, but still. So they are restricted by age. Occupants have their own apartment with full kitchens. There's no healthcare services provided. There's no meals. There's a lease. The cost is generally $1,600 to $4,500. Now, $4,500 is going to be a very high-end senior apartment. The pros, they are cost effective. They're senior focused living. They are going to have amenities that really are catered towards. And by the way, I just want to say 55 is not senior. And so so they call them these, and I really have a problem with that because I don't see that as a senior apartment, by the way. Many of the occupants still work in the workforce. The cons, there's no care on site. There's no meals. There's no housekeeping. Utilities are not included, and transportation depends on the complex. So when people call our company and they say that they're looking for a senior apartment, the question we ask is, are you wanting a continuum of care? If the answer is yes, then we're probably not looking at a senior apartment. If the answer is no, I just strictly want an apartment that has people my age, then we're going to gravitate to this type of segment here. I did some pictures. Looking at these pictures, it looks like an apartment I moved in when I moved to Atlanta, 15 years ago. So they're really nice. They're spacious. You have a pool. It looks like you're ready to party. So there you go. Independent living. So you're going to have an age requirement of 55 or 62 plus. Most are 62 plus. I would say it's, we call it like a worry-free lifestyle. At this point, you just don't want to have to worry about anything pretty much. So meals will be included. It could be 1 meal, 2 meals. It could be 3. You have a bistro or a bar. You have multiple dining setups sometimes. You're going to have a salon on site, an indoor, outdoor pool, a gym. You're going to have walking paths, a media center, theater, crafts. You're going to have an actual activities director. So this is kind of like your cruise ship, right? And you can You can do the activities on the calendar. You don't have to go, whatever you want to do. You will have a maintenance director, and then you'll have additional layers of security. So in each of the rooms in an independent living, in most of them, you're going to have an AM check-in button. In a perfect world, this works, where you check in on the button and it prints out that, person in 306 is checked in and all's good. You're going to have a security guard or a concierge or front desk manager, which you wouldn't have in a senior apartment. And the doors will be locked after certain hours. You'll have access to emergency pull cords. Life alerts, I put that, but actually I think you probably are going to have to bring in your own. Cost. These are all private pay. So everything that we're talking about today is private pay. These are month-to-month leases. You have to give a 30-day notice to vacate. The range is going to be between 2K and 8K. Medicaid and Medicare do not pay for any of this. Long-term care is not going to cover for the room and board in an independent living. Now, if you need to bring in home care, you can work with the home care company and see if your long-term care would possibly pay for the home care in an independent living, but they're not going to pay for independent living. VA benefits as well, that's not going to cover that. Most utilities will be covered except for cable, internet, and landline. All of this, please keep in mind, it just depends on the community. Access to care. So like I said, you can use a third-party home care. Usually these communities have one on site. You do not have to use the home care company that's on site. You can use whoever you want. Home health, a lot of these independent living communities will have PT and OT on site. It may actually have a rehab room. They're going to have transportation and medical appointments within a specific radius, and hospice is welcome. So some pictures of some independent livings. Hopefully they came through. The ones on top are Hardis, which is a gorgeous community. You have your outdoor areas, you have your dining areas, theater, your salon. So now we're moving on to assisted living. When we get calls, normally it's crisis, but it's usually a move-in to assisted living or to memory care. So at this stage, there is an age requirement of 62 years old. This is care-centered living. You're moving here because you need assistance with some ADLs. It is a month-to-month rental with a 30-day notice to vacate, and your options for apartments are usually going to be a studio, a one-bedroom, or a two-bedroom. They're unfurnished. You're going to furnish them yourself. They have kitchenettes, so you're not getting a full kitchen in assisted livings. There are a few that do have full kitchens. They are like unicorns, but they do exist. And you'll get a refrigerator. So this is just the goal of assisted living is really not to keep the person in the room. It's to try to get them out. But it just depends on the person, right? There's going to be 24-hour staff available. You do have access and can bring in your own home care, your own home health, and PT, OT, and hospice. Most of these communities will have a PT and OT room on site. All the meals will be included: transportation, housekeeping, laundry, activities, utilities, emergency pendant. There may be an upfront cost for it, and then pull cords in every room. It's very similar to independent, except this part. The caregivers in the community are actually employees that are going to care for your loved one. They're paid by the community. So they will do your bathing, dressing, grooming, med management, transfers, and incontinent care. There is additional care: insulin management, catheter management. So when people call us, we ask this question, especially if they're coming out of a hospital, because right away, if this is the case that they require insulin management or they have a catheter and need help with the catheter, this really narrows their options down pretty significantly. It could be that these things are temporary. We'll look at that, but that will narrow down. But there are options for those situations. The cost, $3,000 a month to $15,000 a month. $3,000 a month in today's day and age in assisted living is going to get you a shared room more than likely. There are some communities that will do a private studio. You just probably won't have care on top of that. Again, Medicaid's not going to cover at this point, though. Long-term care policies should cover. You just need to work and talk to your long-term care policy. If the person financially qualifies, then VA benefits at this point probably will kick in. Again, there's a whole mathematic equation for all of that, and that's above me. You'll have a salon, your salon, your medications, personal care items, those will all be out of pocket as well. Now, there's two types of systems within an assisted living. You have a point system and an all-inclusive care system. So an all-inclusive care system is wonderful, especially when somebody needs a lot of their ADLs tended to. Everything's included. It's like a no-brainer, right? It's the cost is this, it's all inclusive. You don't have to worry about it. The point systems, communities that do point system, they have a different way of doing it. The general idea is that you have an assessment done, and let's say, your loved one needs bathing, dressing, and medication management. It allots a certain amount of points. They take those points and they then, look at their levels of care, and like points 1 through 5 could be level 1, 6 through 10, level 2, and that will decide how much it's going to be per month. Amenities, same as independent living, your salon, your pools, your gyms, walking. Not all assisted livings have pools, by the way. Now, there are two different licensing here in Georgia. You have your ALC and you have your PC. So assisted living, community, or personal care. They all are going to call themselves assisted living. And in Atlanta, most of them are licensed as assisted livings. There are some that are personal care. What does that mean? That does mean that with a personal care license, you do run the risk of potentially having to move again, but you run the risk of having to move again also in assisted living. I'm just going to be upfront here. But in personal care, if a person becomes non-ambulatory, or if they're a two-person transfer, if the state were to come in, they could be cited. So more than likely you're going to get a 30-day notice to vacate and move in a personal care licensed community. That does not mean that a personal care licensed community is not an age in place. If somebody is, put on critical care hospice, they're not going to be asking you to leave. But we're just all about informing people to make decisions and discern the information. Assisted living communities are what we call age in place, but there are assisted living licensed communities that's not the way they want to be. They want to have high functioning residents. So when a resident does get to that point, they're going to actually give you a notice as well. That's why I say work with someone local so you can figure out what's what.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Could you speak to severe fall risks in assisted living? And the reason I bring that up is my company specializes, we do a lot of stuff with movement disorders.
Right.
And there's a lot of people think you can just go to assisted living if you're a severe fall risk and they'll take care of you. It's a little bit more complicated.
Severe fall risk. So my history, my father had Parkinson's. So I know a little bit about severe fall risks. So that is something that actually needs to be assessed more, because you don't know when someone's going to fall. And in assisted living, they're not in the room 24/7. Okay. You could even have somebody in the room 24/7 with a severe fall risk, and they're still going to fall. Many of you that might be taking care of parents that are severe fall risks, you can turn around and they've fallen already. So to that effect, I would go in to this knowing that if your loved one is a severe fall risk, assisted living is not going to solve that issue, because they are not in there. You're probably going to need to bring in a third-party home care company for that. Does that answer that question? Okay. Here's some pictures of assisted living. You got some smaller rooms. I did the kitchenette thing. Personal care homes. So we like to think of these as like little hidden gems. They're not for everybody, but we refer to personal care homes quite a bit. Individuals that we would refer to a personal care home, maybe they have advanced Alzheimer's. They're not a wander risk. They, might be, they're, their mobility is not as good as it used to be. So it's an intimate residential home-like environment. There's staff on site. Usually the owners are CNAs or LPNs or nurses or people that have just been doing this for 25 plus years. They can be cost-conscious options. They are regulated by the state, just like an assisted living. Their cost ranges can be $2,500 to $9,000. $2,500 is definitely going to be a shared room, month to month, and you can bring in all your home care, home health, etc. There's some pictures of that. Memory care. Okay. So memory care, these are either freestanding or incorporated specialized units within a community. So they are designed to specifically help residents with moderate to advanced cognitive impairment. Greg went over what those would be. So in Atlanta, we have some memory cares that are standalone buildings and everybody in there has some form of dementia. Or we have ones that are part of an assisted living and they are a unit or a neighborhood or a grove, whatever fun word they want to call it, but that's what it is. There'll be private or semi-private rooms. They are secure. You'll get assistance with all ADLs. The fall risk thing is still in place. They're not going to solve all the issues with falls. There are going to be smaller caregiver to resident ratios. And one of the questions we get asked quite a bit are about ratios. In a memory care, you're supposed to have one dementia trained direct care staff person for every 12 residents during waking hours and for every 15 residents on non-waking hours. You're supposed to have an RN, an LPN, or a certified med tech on site at all times. There are 2 direct care staff persons required to be on site at all times, and 1 registered nurse or LPN on site or available in the building at all times. So when people say, oh, they have to be in the building, a nurse always has to be in the building in memory care, that's actually not true. They just probably need to be on call. What you're going to find in memory care is that your nurse is probably there Monday through Friday, may do some weekends from 9 to 5, and then after that, you probably have a med tech. Price, cost $3,500. That'll probably be a shared room, and $15K. It can go up to that too. All inclusive, or they do care levels, just like assisted living. And then some pictures. This one here, the one on the far corner, that's actually a companion suite. If you can see on the other side, it's like a mirror image and they share a bathroom. So they're not too bad. Frequently asked questions about memory care, and I know I'm so short on time. When does a resident become appropriate for memory care? If they're a potential danger to themselves, not safe to be alone, or they're an elopement risk. They walked out of the house, the police have brought them home. When is the right time to move to a memory care? This is a hard question, by the way. I would say care is too much to manage in the home. The primary caregiver's own health is declining and mobility is declining, and there's a potential for being non-ambulatory in the near future. So the criteria to get into assisted living and memory care is pretty black and white. If you are non-ambulatory, you're going to have an issue getting through an assessment. Are there some places that will still accept a person that's completely non-ambulatory? They will, but it's going to be very, very difficult. How do I get my loved one to move in when they're refusing? Beg? No. This is where it might end up going into some legal things. So what I always recommend is make sure you have all your documents in order, your POAs, advanced directives, so that at least you already have a relationship with your elder law attorney. And that way, if it does need to go into a legal situation, which is not ideal and it's heartbreaking, at least you have that contact to do that. Are pets allowed? No. Do residents in memory care go on outings? More pre-COVID, not so much post-COVID, more so they do within the building. Can I stay over with my loved one? I would say maybe one night for transition, but you're really not going to want to. Can I put a camera in my loved one's room? If this is important to you, if you want a camera in your loved one's room, when you're touring a community, you ask this question. If they tell you no, that's probably not where you want to move your loved one. How often can I take my loved one out of the memory care? Really as much as you want, but I say communication is key. So talk to the nurse and the staff in the memory care and find out if you took your loved one out and you brought them back and it took them a long time to self-regulate them again, maybe that's not the right thing to do, okay? Work with them though, and hopefully they'll work with you. Why would a resident be given a 30-day notice if they're a danger to themselves or others? The communities have some leeway, but if it becomes a, chronic issue, they may ask you to leave. So really quickly, skilled nursing facilities and continuing care. Skilled nursing is where your Medicaid is going to be accepted. These are, your nursing homes, you have feeding tubes or respirator. They are paid privately until they're Medicaid eligible, usually a shared room. You have a direct medical director. The pros, they can handle any need. The cons, finding a bed, location being where you want it. The CCRCs, these are the buy-in communities. They're usually anywhere from $150 to $1 million buy-in. The fees are $4 to $20K a month. They are great for the right person. I say if you get in early, they can be wonderful, actually. Some CCRCs will take people straight to assisted, but they like to start an independent living. And that is it. Did I do good? Okay. All right. I'm a fast talker. So if you ever need to reach us, this is our company. You can call us at this number. You can ask for myself, Natasha Berk. And if you would like a business card or a brochure, I'm happy to give you one. Thanks.
Anyone have any questions?
Oh, do you have any questions?
What is a buy-in?
Who has that?
Buy-in.
Okay, buy-in. So there is, yeah. So a buy-in, yeah. So a buy-in, so actually my father-in-law was in a buy-in in Virginia. So at the age of 65 or 66, he and his wife, they bought into a community there, and he actually lived all the way through till the nursing home. And by the time he went there, he had run out of money, and they were able to get him on Medicaid. So he actually he lost his wife there and got remarried there. Yeah, it's really sweet, actually. It was a good thing. And then he lost her too. And then he passed away. But that really is a CCRC when it works right, is when you get in early and you can really experience all like from independent assisted memory care or nursing care. But yeah, they take your money.
So it's like a upfront payment?
Huh?
It's like an upfront payment?
Yeah. So every CCRC is different. So when the person passes, there is a portion that is put back into a trust. It depends on what plan you go on. Some plans, 90% of the deposit. So I don't, gosh, to get so deep in this. Some people look at it and they say, wow, I could take that money and invest it myself. Other people say, okay, well, I'll give the money to the CCRC, and essentially you're giving them the money, they're going to invest it, but what you have is a place to live for the rest of your life. Okay, hopefully that, yeah. Anything
Any
else?
other questions?
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
so
I'm not
much.
going to
Both-
press anything, so I don't know.
Great, yeah. Both Greg and Natasha, really, really great information. Now, just to wrap up, you're gonna get a survey tomorrow via email because you were kind enough to register with your email. If you didn't register with your email and you didn't stop at the registration desk on your way in, please stop on your way out so I can send you a survey. And you can give us your feedback on tonight's program.